A watershed is an area of land that drains into a particular body of water. The Niagara River Lake Erie watershed, in which the land drains into Lake Erie and the Niagara River, encompasses more than 2,000 square miles of land within New York State, including all of Erie County and much of Niagara, Genesee, and Wyoming counties, as well as portions of northern Cattaraugus and Chautauqua counties. This area includes more than 4,000 miles of freshwater rivers and streams. The water quality of those streams, which flow into Lake Erie and the Niagara River, is affected by how we use the land that surrounds our water. Our watershed also includes 92 miles of Lake Erie shoreline. Lake Erie is one of the 5 Great Lakes that hold 84% of North America's surface fresh water and about 20% of the surface fresh water in the entire world. Along this shoreline, most of the land is covered in deciduous forests, with another large portion devoted to cultivated crops. Let's take a look at some of our major tributaries within this watershed and the land that surrounds that water. Let's travel from the mouth of Cattaraugus Creek to its headwaters. Cattaraugus Creek originates at Java Lake in southwestern Wyoming County. The creek flows westerly, becoming the border between Cattaraugus and Erie counties. As you can see from our journey here, more than 40% of the Cattaraugus Creek watershed is covered in deciduous forests, with another 30% divided between pasture and hay and cultivated crops. These are the 3 major land covers in the watershed. With about 34 miles left until the mouth at Lake Erie, you'll reach the Springville Dam, and from this point on, it is excellent steelhead fishing. We're passing now through Zoar Valley with its deep canyon walls, and soon we enter the Cattaraugus Indian Territories, home of the Seneca Nation of Indians. Much of the land in this section of the watershed is managed by the Seneca Nation and their Environmental Protection Department. Let's look at the headwaters of another tributary, this time Cazenovia Creek, starting at Sprague Brook County Park, and we're going to follow the west branch of Cazenovia Creek north. As you can see, more than 50% of this section of the watershed is covered in deciduous forests. But as we move northwest towards the main branch of Cazenovia Creek, that drops to about 20%. In East Aurora, the east and west branch of Cazenovia Creek converge and move through a more developed landscape. The trees and the forests give way to more houses and roads and developed areas. Highlights in this section of the watershed include Cazenovia Park, which you can see we're flying over here in West Seneca. Cazenovia Creek joins the Buffalo River in Buffalo near Bailey Avenue, where just a few miles upstream, Cayuga Creek and Buffalo Creek converge to form the Buffalo River. The Buffalo River twists and turns through a developed area near the city waterfront. More than 50% of the land in this area is considered to be high or medium intensity developed land. The river flows through these twists, eventually moving past the revitalized canal side area before entering Lake Erie. All of our tributaries so far have drained into Lake Erie. If we zoom out, we can see the water intake building, which draws water out of Lake Erie to supply the drinking water to Buffalo and the surrounding areas. Lake Erie drains into the Niagara River here, and as we follow the river north, we see Unity Island Wastewater Treatment Plant, a vital component of water quality protection. The plant collects and cleans to the fullest extent possible Buffalo's sewage and stormwater runoff. A little further north, we would see where another major tributary, Tonawanda Creek, empties into the Niagara River. The headwaters of Tonawanda Creek start in the town of Wethersfield, Wyoming County. Tonawanda Creek runs for more than 1,500 river miles. We are in the upper Tonawanda Creek watershed, which is in the southern part of the watershed. In this area, the top 3 land covers are pasture and hay, deciduous forests, and cultivated crops. All 3 of those figure prominently in this aerial view. We move through some developed areas and smaller towns as we make our way to the city of Batavia, where we will see a much more developed area around Tonawanda Creek. In the city of Batavia, Tonawanda Creek veers to the west, and it will flow through the Tonawanda Reservation, which is home to the Tonawanda Seneca Nation, one of the 6 nations of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. Members of the Seneca Nation have lived near Tonawanda Creek since the early 1700s. We're moving through the middle Tonawanda Creek watershed into the lower Tonawanda Creek watershed, closer to the Niagara River. In this area, our pasture and hay, it covers more than 20% of the land, but we also see much more developed open space and deciduous forests. You'll also notice some woody wetlands. According to the Tonawanda Creek Watershed Committee, the creek flows through a bed of a prehistoric lake that existed approximately 10,000 years ago at the end of the last ice age. The swampy areas that we see surrounding Tonawanda Creek also date back to this lake. And as we move in this final stretch towards the Niagara River and the mouth of Tonawanda Creek, where it empties in the Niagara River, you will see we pass through much more developed areas. Note how the land cover has changed from trees and fields to buildings and roads and parking lots. Tonawanda Creek serves as the boundary between Erie and Niagara counties. But here at the mouth, we see another water body that serves as a political division. The Niagara River separates Canada and the United States, although the land that we are passing to the left here is Grand Island. We can continue our watershed journey north up the Niagara River. As we follow the river, we see where it goes down over Niagara Falls. In this section of the river, our water is moving extremely rapidly. And we'll see as it moves past the reservoirs where water is diverted from the river and then released to generate electricity at the Robert Moses Niagara Power Plant. We move through a calmer portion of the river towards the river mouth, where the Niagara River empties into Lake Ontario. As we zoomed through our watershed today, we focused on land cover. Tomorrow, we'll look more at how land cover affects our water quality. It's important to remember that our land cover and land use in our watershed has changed over time. Let's take a quick trip back to the Buffalo River. This spyglass shows how our land cover today compares with the 1980s. If we look at one of our sampling sites at Mutual Riverfront Park, we can see there was a major change since the 1980s. We can also see this at Riverfest Park along the Buffalo River. The Niagara River Lake Erie waterfront has had a very industrial waterfront since the early 1800s. The legacy of both industry and pollution continue to affect our waterways. Join us tomorrow to find out more.